So from there, she gives me a book by an author called Terry Real. 2 books that changed my life forever. The first one is called I Don't Want to Talk About It, which is the story of male depression. And for most men, it's a tagline that we live by. I don't want to talk about it.
Yep.
Because no one teaches us that it's okay to be vulnerable. No one tells us that it's okay to express our feelings. Most of the time, men are shamed for their vulnerability. We teach young boys that you're not allowed to cry, which is kind of ironic because we want to have great husbands who can be great fathers. But if you don't teach a boy how to love or to be loved, how is he going to give that to his spouse or to his children?
Yep.
So Dr. G really started to help me explore these feelings and these thoughts that I had in my head. So with that first book, led to the next book, which was called The Story of Us. The Story of Us has a very interesting concept. It talks about the 3 parts of self. And basically, Terry Real, who writes the books, talks about that there is an inner child, which is this beautiful being that we all start as. If you want to see true joy and bliss, watch a baby. Watch a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old play. They don't have a care in the world. All they know is they're excited and creative. But somewhere between that age and 10, things change.
Life happens, right?
People tell you you're ugly or you're dumb or you're stupid, or you see something and maybe you don't quite understand it, but you process it in a certain way. So for me, when I was 6 years old, I carry the same name as my father. So my father was really good at sports, and there were certain expectations, or I'm going to call them fantasies. Every parent, in my opinion, has these expectations of what they want their child to be. They are their expectations. They are their fantasies. And whether they say it or not, the child absorbs it. So at 6 years old, my dad's trying to teach me how to play catch. I put the mitt down. The ball rolls up my mitt and smashes me in the face. In that moment, I look up in tears and I look to my father for comfort. Hug me, kiss me, tell me it's going to be okay. That wasn't the type of dad that I had. My dad looks at me, and I'll never forget that feeling. It was the moment as a child that I said to myself, I'm never going to be what he wants. And I carried that my whole life. That one moment made me feel like my whole life I was never going to be what he wanted. So the ball hits me in the face, and he says, go run inside and cry to your mom. That's pretty much what I did most of my life. When things got rough, I went crying to my mom because she would console me. It's hard to make a strong, confident man when no one has taught you what that looks like, especially when you are super sensitive. Not everybody is the same. So she starts talking about how, you know, you're born this way, and then you go from your inner child to your adaptive child. That was interesting to me because I didn't realize, but we did a guided meditation where I had talked to her about that fire that had burned inside me. And I said, for most of my life, my words have burned other people. My words were like daggers. And she said, where did you learn that from? And I said, I don't know. So we closed my eyes and went back in time. And when I was about 11 or 12 years old, I went to work for my best friend's grandparents. They owned a concession trailer. And we would go to the county fairs.
You said 11 years old?
11 years old.
Wow.
Now again, this is 30 years ago. So we would work at the county fairs and the concession trailers, which wasn't regulated, it was no big deal. So we would work all summer long from 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock at night. Well, we would work in this concession trailer that was 500 degrees. And our boss at the time would yell and scream at us constantly So we were always on guard. So this one day he sends me out to go get him a sandwich. I bring him the sandwich back and it's the wrong one. And I take it and I hand it to him and he looks at it and he throws it against the wall and starts screaming at me. And I just start bawling.
Wow.
So I run to the telephone and I pick up the phone and I call my dad and say, this is what's happening as a child. This is what this person is doing to me. And my dad pauses and says, you're being dramatic. Go back to work. That was a moment of helplessness that never left me. It made me feel like no one's going to save me, so I have to save myself. When I went back to that trailer, it changed me forever. That sweet, innocent, loving little boy went to the sideline and I created a monster. I told myself I'll never let anybody ever talk to me like that. For the next 6 years, I watched Grandpa, and that became my role model. That became the version of me, this is what a man looks like. Once I recognized that this all started from childhood, Dr. G said the next part of the story is, again, it starts with the inner child, the adaptive child, the wise adult. She said to me, you're sitting in front of me as a wise adult. Your adult self realizes that you are in pain inside of you. But it's the little boy inside of you who's in pain. In some ways, I was a wounded boy in grown man's clothing.
Wow.
I walked around 6'3", tall, dark, handsome, successful. I had everything that you could think of. But in the inside, I was a sad little boy who never got to really be his authentic self. So as I started to process all of this stuff, I continued going on all of these Deepak Chopra retreats. And he talks about the power of gratitude and how you can be grateful for all of the things that happen to you because they are lessons. He talks about that a lot of things in life is our perspective. For instance, you're in traffic. This person cut me off, I was late. Yeah, that could be right in one hand, but it also could be, you know what, it was a good thing that they cut me off because 1 mile down the road, there was a 10-car accident.
Yeah.
So a lot of times, I want to say, don't quote me on this, the average mind has 40,000 thoughts. And 80 or 90% of those is negative. So our minds are constantly filled with negativity. Well, if you want a happy, positive mind, you have to practice that.
Yeah.
So while we were at the retreat in the journal, Deepak starts talking about gratitude. And I didn't really get it. It didn't really make sense to me. So he has these different speakers on stage, and he brings his children up on stage. And his children talk about how their dad always taught them, find your gift, find your gift. What's your unique talent? And he told his children growing up, I don't care what your grades are. I don't care where you go to college. I don't care what you do for a living. I just want you to do something that brings you joy. And if it brings you joy, then it will bring you money.
Yeah.
My experience, the American way is more. I want more money, more food, more clothes, more cars, more everything. And because we let that guide us, we take jobs and go to school for things that don't bring us any joy.
Yep.
So his son comes up on stage, and Deepak is an Indian gentleman, and he was like, hey, in my country, we didn't play sports. Deepak's son loves sports. And love sports. Deepak said, as a child, I tried to steer him in a different direction while being loving. Fast forward. His son talks about, I'm so grateful to my father because he gave me the greatest gift. And we said, so what do you mean by that? He said, hit play. So he hits play, and it's a documentary for ESPN. His son took his love for sports and does documentaries for ESPN.
Oh, wow.
So he was like, my life is a dream. Here it is. I'm doing exactly what I love in the industry that I love, which brings me the type of job and financial income that I want, all because of my father. Deepak shares one more story that he wanted to be a writer, but his father wouldn't let him. He said, writers don't make any money. You're going to be a doctor. So for 12 years, Deepak goes to school to be a doctor while also writing his books. Deepak is 77 years old, and he's written 99 books.
That's amazing.
So what I learned in that is, even though he went a certain career path because that's what he was told to do, he never gave up on what he really knew as a child that he loved. There's a lot of irony in the story. Part of it is I never liked the sound of my voice. And it's, again, I guess ironic that the one thing that I disliked the most about myself is what I'm using right now to communicate. So that's the first part. The second part is when I was at the retreats, my favorite part was the fellowship of sitting down and telling people your story. And what I realized when I was at these retreats was no one knew who I was. I got to be exactly who I wanted to be. I got to tell the story the way that I wanted. That gave me a liberation to be able to open up and to start to be my authentic self. It was, again, stepping outside of my current environment and putting myself in an environment where I could nurture those three parts of self.